Yeah. Let's talk about Newcastle, Pete, who are also struggling for goals. They have the fewest goals of any club in the top half of the Premier League table. Johan Bakayoko is the most recent right wing link that we have seen. Obviously, a position that they've been linked with almost every right winger in the world at some point in the last 6 months. Could you see them paying up the big money for him this January to help bolster that attack?
I would be surprised if they went and did it in January. I'm sure he's on the list. Bakayoko, as you said, is a top young player, a Belgium international now as well, and he's really impressed at PSV over the last couple of seasons as well, and he is playing in the Champions League this season, so that's obviously helping with his experience as well. We've talked about this problematic position for Newcastle. So we're blue in the face, really. They're desperate to bring in this right-sided winger, inverted as well. Bakayoko ticks a lot of the boxes. Young player, 21 I think he is. He's only going to get better and better. I think there'll be a lot of clubs who'll be keeping tabs on Bakayoko. Liverpool have been strongly linked with him as well as a potential replacement for Mohamed Salah if Salah ends up leaving at the end of his contract as well. So yeah, I'm sure Newcastle are doing their homework on Bakayoko and others. We know there is interest in Brentford's Brian Mbuemo for this right wing role. There's also been interest in Alanga, who they tried to sign on deadline day last summer. And Antoine Semenyo from Bournemouth is another player that's on the radar. So Eddie Howe is desperate to bring in another attacking player. As you said, they have struggled for goals so far this season. But I just feel it'll be hard to probably land their top targets in the January window. Might be a bit more realistic in the summer window when Newcastle have more money to spend, and obviously PSV on their side probably don't want to lose Bakayoko midway through the season as they're competing to retain the Dutch title, and there's a real possibility that PSV could be in the Champions League come the start of the new year as well, so they won't want to lose one of their best players, and I think they would probably try and price him out of a move in January. You're probably looking at 30 to 40 million pounds at least for somebody like Bakayoko.
And Paul, at what point do you feel that Newcastle might think that paying up the big money in January might be worth it if it could help them secure the Champions League places that they desire? Obviously, they're in 10th, but just 4 points off of 4th place right now. Could you see them paying up big money for Antoine Semenyo or even Dominic Calvert-Lewin in January just to make sure they get those goals in and make that final push for the top four?
Listen, they're the richest club in the world. They can spend whatever they want, but they've got to toe the line with the FFP and PSR, which has been the problem. It was only, the start of this season that we're sat here, we're talking about Bruno Gomes and Kieran Trippier and Almiron and others, Joe Linton potentially before he signed his new contract, them having to sell them. So wherever they are with their FFP and PSR plays a big part in that. Let's not forget the new contracts as well. Joe Linton signed a new contract, so all that drops into the financial fair play bracket, and at the same time. So it's a balancing act for Newcastle. I don't like it. I really don't like it because the FFP and PSR is the governing to govern football. But actually, how are you going to close the gap on the teams that have been allowed to spend what they want for a number of years? You've got a club like Newcastle, who are a massive football club, a huge fan base. They're the richest football club in the world, but they've been hamstrung because of the rules. They can't spend the money they've got. It's frustrating. You can understand the likes of Newcastle, the likes of Nottingham Forest, who have got owners who are cash rich, who want to spend the money to put the football club in place, like Forest, for example, back where it was, winning European trophies, Newcastle in an area that it's never been. And we should be talking about Newcastle going into January, having a massive window, looking at these players, looking at that, strengthening with world-class players because they're able to do that. But because of these rules, they've not been allowed to do it. So listen, if they had the opportunity to go and spend that money in January, and it was a player that Eddie Howe wanted, and there's a benefit for him, then I don't see a reason that they wouldn't go and spend big other than FFP and PSR.
And Pete, here's a link I'm sure you never thought you'd hear, but Sergio Ramos is rumored to be a player of interest for Newcastle. Could you see him really making a move to St. James's Park?
I would be very surprised, let's put it that way. Obviously, Ramos is a free agent right now after leaving Sevilla at the end of last season. But loads of red flags over this one for me. He's 38 now. Ramos, obviously, unbelievable player, CV right up there with some of the world's best players. And as I said, his time at Real Madrid was trophy laden and everything else. So obviously, his experience would be a valuable asset to any team, I think, in that respect. But I just don't see now at this stage that Newcastle would be pursuing a move for Sergio Ramos due to his age. Obviously, Newcastle looking to sign young players that they can develop and make them into potential superstars, and also he hasn't played for nearly 6 months now as well, so it's going to take him a bit of a while to get match fit and everything else. And I don't think Newcastle can afford to wait around for that. They want any signings to come in to hit the ground running, and they're going to improve the squad straight away as well. And also, Newcastle are hoping to welcome back Sven Botman very soon now. He's back in training, so they're hoping that he'll be back in contention for Eddie Howe's side in December, and we could see him back playing during that busy festive period when there's games every couple of days as well, which will be a huge boost for Eddie Howe. So yeah, a bit shocked by this link with Sergio Ramos, and as I said, I'd be very surprised if Newcastle went ahead and did it, and I don't really see him as an Eddie Howe type of signing.
No, you can see him, can't you, signing him in January, taking a month to get fit. He starts playing February, end of February, gets sent off at the end of February, misses the next 4 matches, and you pay him an absolute fortune for 6 weeks worth of games. I mean, the Premier League's so quick. Listen, Sergio Ramos, he's been one of the best defenders in the world for a number of years, but at 38 years old, having not played for 6 months, to come into the Premier League and to immediately start playing, it's a massive ask, because the way that the game is, the speed of the game, he'd need a lot of protection either side of him if he was going to play that. Even a back three with 2 centre-halves next year, I can't see that as a January move. In fact, I'd be surprised if he did come to the Premier League.